Hi everyone, welcome to both Science and Law on Trial. We're going to be talking about how the road to hell is paved with good intentions. We're going to talk about that proverb and how that is playing out in current events with the current situation. And so sometimes you have individuals who engage in activities that are well-meaning. However, the end result is less than something that is well. And we are dealing with a situation right now where there may be good intentions on the parts of many people. However, the end result has been very pathological and very psychologically unhealthy and sick. Now, we don't have a quick solution to this current problem that has been evolving for a good period of time now, but that does not diminish the necessity for pointing out that there is a problem that requires some sort of resolution. A big part of the problem is we are dealing with forensics, and forensics is that integration of science and law. And we are dealing with forensics, but what is happening is individuals who are orchestrating things, are in control of things, are not versed in forensics. And so therefore they may not be aware of the way that you are supposed to use science in relation to the law. And so there are a number of ways that science relates to the law. You can bring some sort of comprehension to some aspect of the law. You can use science to help evaluate an aspect of the law or the processes of law. And you can also use science to improve upon the administration of justice. Now, law, on the other hand, is supposed to regulate the practice of both science and medicine. And so what you have going on here is individuals who are not sufficiently versed in science, these hard sciences, and they are mandating things based upon a level of ignorance. And so there is not the nuanced understanding of the science that they are dealing with, that they are using then to inform legal processes and political processes. And this is just a sample of where this problem comes from. What is happening is you have individuals who have been tasked with either making laws or enforcing laws, and they are not adequately informed in terms of having that disciplinary foundation. They are not adequately informed about the science that they are then using to inform the law. And so you can see here some examples of the foundations of individuals who may be in the public spotlight. And so they tend to have degrees in political science or history or some other social science. And this is not an adequate foundation in order to inform someone about how to use a particular hard science in relation to the law. And so you have a lot of decision making based upon being ill-informed or inadequately informed about the science. And you can see these examples here. You have one individual who has a degree in political science, another executive with another degree in political science. You have additional executives with additional degrees in political science, and then one with a degree in communications. This is not an adequate background in order to deal with the situation that we are dealing with now. And so therefore you have individuals who may have good intentions. However, again, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. And so we're going to talk about how some of these good intentions have evolved to include some practices and mandates that may not be healthy in the long run. Now, it's possible for something to be theoretically healthy in terms of physical health and also be unhealthy in terms of mental health. The problem here is that when something is unhealthy in terms of mental health, there is that mind-body connection, and you're going to eventually end up with something that is unhealthy also in terms of physical health. Generally, psychologists deal with individuals who are dealing with psychological challenges, psychological distress, mental illness. But in this particular case, we are talking about an entire globe, an entire world that is wrapped up in a psychological distress pattern. And so you have an entire globe of individuals, communities, families, cities, countries that are involved in this mandating of mental illness. In other words, requiring individuals to behave in a mentally ill manner in order to conform with the dictates of the law. To make this clear and easy to understand, we are going to look at some of the symptomatology related to this global dynamic of manifesting mental illness based upon legal mandates. And so one disorder is the somatic symptom disorder. And so these disorders or these behaviors used to be classed under something called hypochondriasis. And so being a hypochondriac, in other words. And so you are still seeing the manifestation of that. And not only are you seeing the manifestation of that, you are seeing the legal mandate of being mentally ill. People must be mentally ill in order to fulfill the dictates of the law. And so this is a very unusual dynamic we are dealing with here. And so the way you know that this is taking place is that you see symptoms. And the symptoms are excessive thoughts, feelings, or behaviors related to the physical symptoms or health concerns of at least one of the following. So you see ongoing thoughts that are out of proportion to the seriousness of the symptoms that an individual might be experiencing. In other words, in this situation, individuals aren't experiencing any symptoms in many instances because they are thinking about this dynamic of being asymptomatic. We can discuss that at another time. And so you have individuals who don't even have symptoms, let alone serious symptoms. And then you also have individuals who have an ongoing high level of anxiety about their health or about symptoms that they may or may not be having. And then you have this excessive amount of time and energy spent on these symptoms or health concerns. Now, this is not negating the fact that some people may actually be ill and may be experiencing symptoms. We are talking about when individuals are not experiencing serious symptoms and are still playing out this dynamic. And so you are looking at individuals who have at least one of these symptoms being constantly present, even though these symptoms may sort of come and go. It's almost impossible for people to allow the symptoms to come and go because individuals are being mandated to behave in this psychologically maladaptive manner. And moving right along, we're going to talk about illness anxiety disorder, and this relates to having a preoccupation with having or acquiring a serious illness. And so you can see how this is a global dynamic with individuals around the world being tasked with being preoccupied with acquiring a serious illness. And this is for all age groups. And so you're talking about toddlers through old age. And how do you know when individuals are exhibiting symptoms of this disorder? You have an individual who is performing excessive health-related behaviors. They are repeatedly checking their bodies for signs of illness. This could be things like checking temperature, obsessing about bodily changes, constantly washing, constantly sanitizing, constantly spraying things, constantly avoiding people. All of these things traditionally are seen as psychologically maladaptive. However, these things have been normalized because they have been legally mandated. And it's important to point out that even though something is legally mandated, it does not change the fact that it is maladaptive and indicative of a significant psychological challenge. And so another indicator for this particular mental illness is illness preoccupation for at least 6 months. And so we are at the point of past 6 months. And even though you might have this 6-month period, the specific illness that is feared can change over time. And so you also want to make sure that this illness-related preoccupation is not better explained by yet another mental disorder, because this illness preoccupation can actually fit under the umbrella of a number of disorders. And we're going to talk about another one. Before we look at that other disorder, we're going to quickly look at some dynamics that are contributing to this increase in this psychologically maladaptive behavior pattern that you are seeing across the globe. A main issue is that individuals are being bombarded across the globe with negative media coverage. And this media coverage is a sickness media coverage. There is a focus on negative outcomes, a focus on negativity, a focus on being sick, a focus on mortality, a focus on all of this negativity about being vulnerable. And so there is this encouraging of individuals to then practice these compulsive behaviors and engage in obsessions that are then followed by these compulsions. And so there is a dearth, however, of wellness education. So there is really little focus on individuals practicing healthy behaviors or practicing behaviors that will keep them healthy and well. And we're not talking about the avoidance behaviors or the washing behaviors, those now pathological behaviors. We're talking about things that would boost your immune system, exercising, eating right, having appropriate social relationships, being active. And so you see a dearth of that, but a great focus on being sick and taking on that sickness persona, focusing on being sick, focusing on other people being sick, almost worshiping microbes. And so that is a big problem when people are being bombarded with that, and then they are even seeking that out. And so there needs to be more education on being well, whether you're talking about physically well, spiritually well, emotionally well, mentally well, economically well, all of those areas of wellness. That needs to be the focus based upon what would help people move to a psychologically healthy space. And again, this research talks about the need to balance these media-related presentations, because these media presentations are doing nothing more than creating hypochondriasis and also encouraging people to become obsessive and stressed about not only their health, but the health of everyone else. And finally, we're going to look at this concern related to obsessive compulsive disorder, also known as OCD. This is a serious psychiatric condition that involves obsessions and compulsions. In this case, you see individuals who are manifesting obsessions and compulsions. The obsessions are largely coming from a push from the media related to fear of contagion. And so people are obsessing about contagions and obsessing about becoming contaminated and coming into contact with microbes. And what's happening with these obsessions is that individuals are then having this resulting heightened anxiety. And then there's a need to reduce that anxiety, and that's where the compulsions come in. And so the compulsions, interestingly, are being mandated by law, ordinances, regulations. And so the compulsions involve things such as repeated washing and sanitizing, personal protective equipment outside of medical settings or settings where someone is actually ill, and then the mandate for physical distancing. And so you see individuals doing this in a compulsive manner. There's no thought attached to it. It's just an automatic compulsion. But by doing this compulsive behavior, the anxiety is often reduced for many people. It's important to remember that this is not diminishing the fact that there are contagions out there. There are many contagions. However, what's going on right now is something that is beyond what would be considered the norm in terms of response to a contagion. And the anxiety that is being encouraged is higher than what is considered the norm for the situation that we are dealing with. And this is going on, again, you're talking about from country to country, regardless of the actual existence of the contagion or the existence of the contagion related to specific individuals. And so you have individuals engaging in these repeated behaviors based upon this anxiety, and then engaging in these compulsions in order to reduce this anxiety. And even though you can't just diagnose an entire globe with OCD, you can still see the manifestations of this and acknowledge that this is a problem. Hence, you have so many new positions opening up for psychologists, because there is such a need, because this situation has brought about significant mental illness, not only in the form of these illness, anxiety disorders, and OCD. We're talking about significant responses related to affective disorders or depressive disorders. People are becoming delusional. People are experiencing heightened anxiety and engaging in significant abuse, including substance abuse. And so you have a situation where the problem is not quite as bad as what people have determined might be a good solution. So again, you have people with good intentions in many instances, and in some instances, perhaps not good intentions. We're not going to go into that right now. However, you have these intentions, and it doesn't matter how good the intentions are. These intentions are certainly paving the way straight to hell. Remember, knowledge is power. Take care and see you soon.